I'd seen photos of Waverly Hills online for years, the kind of grainy black and white shots people post when they want to prove a place is haunted. But no picture could have prepared me for the moment I saw it in real life. The building didn't just sit on the hill, it owned it, like a king on a throne, looming over the trees. The drive up was longer than she expected. My little car rattled over gravel, each twist of the road pulling me further from the city, further from noise, further from anything that felt familiar. The forest swallowed the sound of my engine. No birds, no crickets, just the crunch of tires on rock and the occasional sigh of wind through the trees. I adjusted my cardigan tighter over my chest. Even though the air wasn't cold, it was nerves. Always has been. When I get nervous, I fidget, fold my arms, play with my hair. When I finally rounded the last bend and the sanatorium came into view, my foot almost slipped from the gas. Waverly stood there in the dying light, all brick and shadow, stretching its long wings outward like it was trying to embrace me or cage me. I swear the windows stared back, hollow eyes, watching. I parked at the bottom of the cracked front steps, right where visitors must have walked in almost 100 years ago. For a moment, I didn't move, just sat there gripping the wheel, listening to my heartbeat in my ears. Then I killed the engine, and the silence rushed in so fast it made me dizzy. The air smelled damp, sharp, faintly metallic, like old pipes or dried blood. A breeze stirred the weeds poking through the concrete, and for just a second, I thought I heard voices in it, whispers, too soft to catch. I whispered back to myself, "You came here for this. Don't stop now." With that, I stepped out of the car, tightened my bag strap across my shoulder, and started toward the side entrance. The doorway yawned open, black and waiting. My flashlight felt too heavy in my hand. I clicked it on, the beam trembling as it cut into the dark, and with one shaky breath I crossed the threshold. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Damp plaster, mildew, rust. It clung to my tongue, bitter and metallic. The second thing I noticed was how the air seemed different, heavier, like the building was breathing with me, exhaling when I exhaled, inhaling when I dared to breathe again. My flashlight swept across peeling walls, broken glass. A rusted gurney tipped on its side. The beam quivered, not because the batteries were weak, but because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The floor crunched beneath my flats with every step, the sound bouncing down the hallway and coming back too loud, like someone else was walking just a beat behind me. I whispered, "It's just the echo," though the words tasted false the moment I said them. A clatter rang out deeper inside, sharp and metallic, like a tray dropped on tile. My heart slammed against my ribs. I froze, flashlight darting across the hall. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. I pressed my palm against the wall, paint crumbling under my fingers, grounding myself. Each door I passed was cracked open, rooms yawning black, each one holding a memory I couldn't see, but somehow felt. I imagined coughing fits echoing off the walls, nurses in crisp white dresses rushing by, the scrape of chairs, the muffled sobs of families saying goodbye. The hall stretched longer the further I walked, as if the building was bending itself, refusing to let me reach the end. My breath grew louder, sharper, and every time I glanced over my shoulder, I swore I'd catch the edge of a shadow slipping out of sight. I whispered again, "You're still alone." But the words fell flat, swallowed by something that didn't want me to believe them. I didn't plan to go there next, but my feet carried me, almost like the building was guiding me. The children's ward stretched wide, long rows of windows shattered, moonlight spilling across the cracked floors. Toys still littered the corners, stuffed animals worn to rags, a tricycle with one wheel missing, blocks scattered as if someone had been interrupted mid-play. My chest tightened. Out of everything I'd seen so far, this was the hardest to face. I whispered, "I'm sorry," though I wasn't sure who I was talking to. The air here felt lighter at first, but that made it worse, as if laughter could break out at any second, bouncing off the walls where coughing once filled the space. I took slow steps, flashlight cutting through the rows of beds, small and rusted, their frames bent. That's when she heard it. A giggle. High. Soft. I froze, every hair on my arms rising. The sound came again, closer this time, followed by the faint squeak of wheels. My light swung left. The tricycle moved. Just a few inches, rolling across the floor before stopping. My breath caught. I whispered, "Who's there?" But my voice cracked. No answer. Just another giggle, this time from behind me. I spun, and for a split second I saw them. Tiny figures darting between the beds, too quick for my light to catch. Their shadows longer than they should have been. The ward filled with echoes of play. The slap of bare feet, the rattle of blocks, the creak of bed springs. I pressed my back against the wall, fighting the urge to cover my ears. Then, clear as day, a small voice whispered right next to her, "Stay with us." I jerked away, heart slamming, my flashlight, beam jerking wildly. But there was nothing, just the empty ward, silent again. I ran, but I swear I felt tiny hands brushing against my arms as I passed. By the time I stumbled up the final stairwell to the roof, I was shaking so badly I thought I might collapse. But I needed air. Real air. The door groaned open, and the night sky stretched wide above me. Stars scattered across the black, like glitter spilled on velvet. For a moment it was almost beautiful. The city lights were a faint glow in the distance. But here, it was just me and the building. The breeze cooled my sweat-damp skin. I pressed my palms against the low wall, forcing myself to breathe. But the relief didn't last, because I wasn't alone. At first, I thought it was the wind, low murmurs twisting through the night. But the longer I listened, the more they formed words. Pleas, cries, too many voices overlapping, rising in waves of despair. I turned and my light caught the far corner of the roof. Someone was standing there, a woman, her back to me, hair long and tangled, gown fluttering in the breeze. She swayed gently, as if caught in some invisible rhythm. My throat tightened. "Hello," I whispered, though the word nearly stuck in my throat. She didn't answer. She just climbed onto the ledge. I rushed forward before I could think, my flashlight beam jittering. But when I reached her, the ledge was empty. The gown fluttered in the air for just a second longer, then vanished into the night. I stared down at the drop, the concrete 5 stories below. My stomach twisted. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my ears. And then I felt it, hands at my back, not pushing but hovering, waiting. I stumbled away from the edge, whispering, "No, not me, not tonight." The voices stopped, but I knew the roof remembered. The basement had been bad, but the morgue was worse. Everyone talked about it in hushed tones, the place where the dead came before the tunnel carried them away. I didn't want to go, but by now every hallway seemed to funnel me here, whether I liked it or not. The morgue door hung crooked, its metal warped. When I stepped inside, the air was icy. My breath puffed white in the beam of my light. The slabs were still there, Metal tables streaked with rust, drawers lining the walls like filing cabinets for bodies. I swallowed hard, fighting nausea. I whispered, just looking, just passing through. But the room didn't care what I wanted. The drawers rattled, one by one. Bang, 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 each one harder, louder, until the sound filled the room. My flashlight beam darted across the walls, catching only rust and shadow. Then one drawer slid open. Slowly, the darkness inside yawned wide. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My light shook violently in my hand, but I couldn't look away. A hand reached out, pale, thin, nails broken. It curled over the edge of the drawer, and then another hand joined it, pulling, dragging something forward. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a slab. My scream stuck in my throat. The figure never fully emerged, just the suggestion of a face, hollow-eyed, mouth opening and closing like it wanted to speak. And then, as quickly as it began, the drawer slammed shut with a metallic clang that echoed down the hall. Silence. My body moved before my brain could, carrying me out of the morgue, back into the hallway, lungs heaving. But I knew it wasn't over. Not here. The further I went, the more the sanatorium felt alive. Not alive like trees or animals, but alive the way a theater feels after the show is over, when the seats are empty, but the stage still hums with memory. I stopped in front of a door with its number plate rusted beyond recognition. The window in the door was cracked, and in the fractured glass I caught my own reflection. Or I thought I did. My face looked stretched, eyes too wide, mouth too thin. And then, for just a flicker, there was another shape behind me. Tall, thin, watching. I spun around, heart in my throat. Nothing but the empty hallway. When I turned back, my reflection was gone too. I swallowed hard, forcing myself forward. But the weight of the past pressed against me heavier with every step. I remembered what I'd read before coming here. How patients would sit in these rooms for months, years, coughing blood into handkerchiefs until they faded into the walls. The air grew colder. My light caught a wheelchair in one of the rooms. Its seat shredded, wheels rusted stiff. The sight twisted my stomach. I imagined it moving, slowly, creaking across the tile toward me, even though it hadn't moved in decades. I whispered out loud, "This place remembers everything," and as if the building wanted to agree, the faint sound of coughing drifted from somewhere deeper inside. Wet, ragged, choking. I froze. The sound stopped. The silence that followed was worse. She had read about it online. Locals called it the body chute, though the official name was the death tunnel. Just saying those words felt wrong, like tempting something she didn't understand. But once Jessica stumbled on the stairwell leading down, she knew exactly where she was. The tunnel stretched beneath the sanatorium, nearly 500 feet of sloping concrete that once carried corpses away from the hospital, so patients upstairs wouldn't see the endless stream of death. Doctors had said it was for efficiency. Survivors whispered it was for mercy. Jessica stood at the mouth of the tunnel, her flashlight beam struggling to cut through the darkness. The air here was colder, damp enough to sting her nose, the smell of mildew mixed with something sour, sharp, like rot clinging to concrete. She told herself she'd just peek inside. Just a few steps. Nothing more. But the tunnel pulled her in, every footstep echoing against the walls, repeating, mocking her. She held her light low, watching shadows crawl along the floor. Halfway down she heard it. A shuffle, slow, dragging, like something heavy being pulled along the concrete. Her chest tightened. The beam of her flashlight trembled against the tunnel wall. She whispered, "Hello." Her voice came back to her, warped, carried down the slope, until it didn't sound like her voice at all anymore. It sounded older, weaker, and then, beneath the echo, a reply. Not words, just breathing. Wet, close. Jessica stumbled backward, flashlight jerking wildly. For one heart-stopping second, the beam caught a figure. A pale face, eyes too hollow, lips moving soundlessly. Then the light sputtered, and when it steadied again, the tunnel was empty. She didn't wait to see more. She turned and ran, her breath hammering against the walls, until she burst back into the hallway above, clutching her chest, swearing the air outside the tunnel was somehow lighter, safer. But only just. People online always talk about the 5th floor, especially room 502. It's the place whispered about in forums, the one everyone claims is the heart of Waverly's darkness. I told myself I wouldn't go there, that I'd stick to the safer wings. But when I reached the stairwell, something in me pushed upward instead of down. The steps creaked under my weight, each groan echoing like a warning. By the time I reached the 5th landing, the air was thinner, sharper, as if the building itself didn't want me here. The hallway stretched quiet, lined with peeling paint and broken doors. But I could feel it, eyes watching from the shadows, waiting. Room 502 wasn't hard to find. Its door was heavier than the others, hanging crooked on rusted hinges. The number plate was cracked but still readable. My fingers shook as I traced the digits, the cold metal biting at my skin. I'd read the stories. A nurse found hanging from a light fixture. Another who leapt from the window, despair swallowing them whole. Some said it was tuberculosis madness. Others whispered something darker. Something in this room drove them to it. When I stepped inside, the air shifted. Heavier, colder. My flashlight beam skimmed across cracked tiles, a rusted bed frame, and the window, still there, gaping open like a mouth. I whispered, "Hello," though I regretted it immediately. At first nothing, just silence. Then a faint creak, high above. My light jerked upward, catching in the ceiling. The fixture swayed, slowly, back and forth. My stomach dropped. A shadow stretched across the wall, long and thin, like a body dangling. My breath hitched. I wanted to run, but my legs rooted to the floor. The shadow twisted, head lolling to the side, and though the room was empty, I swore I felt the brush of hair against my shoulder. I gasped, stumbling back, and the window slammed shut with a crack that shook the room. I bolted into the hallway, lungs burning, whispering, "No, no, no, no," under my breath. But as I reached the stairwell, I couldn't shake it. The feeling of a rope tightening around my neck, invisible, waiting. I thought I'd seen the worst of Waverly by then, but the building had other plans. The hallway I entered next stretched longer than any I'd walked before. Lining both sides were tall windows, their glass cracked, streaked with years of rain and grime. The moonlight seeped through in pale strips, painting the floor with jagged silver lines. At first, the quiet almost comforted me. My footsteps echoed soft, steady, almost rhythmic. But as I passed each window, I felt it, like someone was walking in step with me on the other side of the glass. A shadow, a presence. I stopped. So did it. I held my light toward the nearest pane, squinting into the reflection. My own face looked back, pale, strained. But just behind my shoulder, another shape loomed, tall, bent, its head tilted at an impossible angle. I spun, the beam jerking across the hallway. Nothing. But in the glass, it was still there. It didn't move like her, didn't mimic. It just stared. Its mouth stretched open wider than it should, teeth sharp in a grin that didn't belong to her reflection. The air grew colder. The glass began to fog, as if breath pressed against it from the other side. Letters formed slowly, one by one, in the mist. You can't leave. My throat closed. My hand gripped the flashlight so hard my knuckles ached. I stumbled backward, but the writing followed me down each pane, repeating, stretching, until the whole hall screamed with the words. I bolted, refusing to look back, the crash of shattering glass chasing me as I ran. I didn't even realize I was heading toward the chapel until the hallway opened into a cavernous space with a vaulted ceiling. The air here felt heavier, almost suffocating. My flashlight beam skimmed over rows of broken pews, their wood warped and splintered, all facing a crumbling altar at the far end. It should have been safe here, holy, but the moment I stepped inside, my chest tightened, like I'd walked into a room that despised me. I whispered, "Hello," out of habit. My voice came back warped, stretched thin, as though dragged along the walls before returning. The altar stood crooked, the remnants of a cross hanging above it. For a heartbeat, I swore it bent further, as if something unseen pressed against it. Then the whispers started. Not the breeze, not my imagination. Voices, dozens of them, layered, muttering in tones that rose and fell like prayer. The words were too faint to understand, but their rhythm clawed at my nerves. I stepped back. The whispers grew louder. My beam darted across the pews and froze. They were full. Dark figures sat hunched, heads bowed, hands clasped. A congregation of shadows. I staggered, choking on air, whispering, "This isn't for me. I don't belong here." The voices stopped, all at once, and then one word, deep and guttural, rolled from the front. "Stay." I didn't. I bolted through the nearest doorway, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. Somehow, my flight carried me down instead of up. Before I realized I was in the basement again, flashlight beam jittering across damp concrete walls and rusted pipes. The smell was unbearable. Mildew, rot, something sour that burned my throat. The air clung to me, wet and cold. The sound came next. A dragging noise, slow, steady, like something heavy pulled across the floor. I whispered, "Who's there?" My voice cracked, brittle. The dragging stopped. Then came footsteps, bare, slapping against the wet concrete, approaching from the dark. My light swung wildly, catching nothing but pipes and shadow. The sound grew closer. I stumbled backward, tripping on debris. My light hit the floor, and that's when I saw it. A hand, pale, thin, nails cracked, fingers clawing against the ground. It slid back into the dark before she could scream. Another hand appeared, then another. Bodies half seen, dragging themselves forward, limbs bent wrong, mouths open but silent. I pressed myself against the wall, sobbing without sound. My flashlight flickered, shadows swelling and shrinking like they were breathing. Then, silence. The hall was empty again, but the floor glistened where the hands had been, wet with something I refused to name. I don't remember how I made it out, only that I ran. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs threatened to collapse, until a side door finally yawned open, and I stumbled into the night. The air outside hit me sharp, cool, alive. I doubled over, gasping, clutching my chest. My car still sat at the bottom of the cracked steps, waiting like salvation. But when I turned back, I wished I hadn't. Waverly Hills towered above, its windows glowing faint with moonlight, and in them, figures, dozens, hundreds, shapes pressed against the glass, watching, patients, nurses, shadows of everyone who never left. My eyes blurred with tears. I whispered, "I'm sorry, though I didn't know why, or to whom." They didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. I staggered to my car, fumbling with the keys. The engine roared, startling in its normalcy. I peeled down the gravel road, trees whipping past, hard hammering. Only when the building disappeared behind the hills did I breathe again. But even now, telling you this, I swear I can feel them, their eyes, their whispers, and sometimes when I close mine, I hear it still. The cough, wet, ragged, following me home.